So I've had the iPhone 14 Pro Max for about 48 hours, and I have some definitive thoughts about this thing. Even though it hasn't been a full week like some of the other reviews, I already know what I think about this thing. And the thing is, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time showing you the specs or camera shots or all the things that all the other tech YouTubers have already done. That's not what this video is about. It's about the very meat and potatoes. Do you need to have this phone? Is it a phone for you? Do I feel like I regretted upgrading to it? And more. So let's talk about that. Number one, yes, this is the best iPhone you can buy. That's no surprise. It's the latest and greatest. What's interesting is for the first time in Apple's history, the iPhone 14, the regular series, really kind of isn't. It's got the same exact processor as last year. And while they've added a couple of new tricks, like the crash detection, for the first time in Apple's history, they did not upgrade the system on a chip. We're talking about the Pro though. Was it worth it? I said in my last video that one of the main reasons that I upgraded to this thing was the dynamic island. It still kind of is. I mean, I really hated the notch. That's why I didn't want to keep a hold of my iPhone 13 Pro Max anymore. But the reality is it's not that big of a deal. I thought it would be kind of cooler. And yeah, it does some pretty neat things, but to be honest, for what I use my phone for, I rarely see some of those cool new features. Now, hopefully when the third parties get a hold of this thing, they're going to add new features to the dynamic island. But for me, I haven't really noticed that much difference at all. When it comes to battery life, now that's one of the biggest and most important things when it comes to upgrading from whatever phone you have, in this particular case, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And I'll be perfectly honest, haven't really seen a difference. Does that mean there is not a difference? No. But the reality is all of the iPhone Pro Max series have always gotten me through the day. Even in some of the most extreme circumstances, I've always gotten through the day. So if this thing does have a better battery life, I'm probably never going to see it. And that's good enough for me. Get me enough time to get to my charger and I'm good. And since I've never really had to charge in the middle of the day, I'm good. So have I seen a degradation in the battery life? No. Is it about the same or better? I don't know. I'm just gonna be honest. This is a should I buy it video. I'm not gonna tell you if it's 16 hours with the battery off and streaming Netflix all the time. I don't know that. I don't know. One of the things I've been doing recently on my new non-tech YouTube channel is using my iPhone as a secondary camera when I go out and about because the iPhone's video is so damn good. So I'm getting a slightly better camera on this with higher megapixels and hopefully something that I'm looking forward to using, the 4K cinematic mode. And I haven't used it yet, so I can't tell you whether or not it's drastically better, but I did use a 1080p version and I was actually happy enough to be able to use that. I just wanted to wait for 4K. Unfortunately, Apple still has not decided to ship its baseline phones with more than 128 gigs of storage, which blows my mind. Back in the day, the OnePlus 7 Pro, which remains one of my favorite Android phones of all time, shipped with 256 gigs of storage at $750. Years ago. Apple, can we up the storage a little bit? You got all these cool Pro RAW and all these other features that take up a whole bunch of storage, but you do not up the base storage. I know, I get it. Most people won't need that much, but when you're buying a Pro Max, give me Pro Max storage. But one of the things that I actually had not even considered that is both, I don't know, something I like and something I don't like about this phone is the always on display. Now that's something that I've been waiting for a long time because I loved it on my Android phones. You get kind of used to it. And Apple did something different because Apple does different things. In this particular case, they brought a feature that everyone's been wanting for a long time, but I think they implemented it wrong. So much so that you're actually seeing people kind of complain about it. And I know why. Matter of fact, let's talk a little bit more about that by showing what Mr. Mobile said about the always on display. He said it better than I could. I like Michael. He's always been a really good supporter of this channel. Let's see what he said.
Coming from an Android phone, you've probably gotten accustomed to a minimalist smattering of icons, a clock, maybe the occasional song title or calendar reminder. And if you're coming from an earlier iPhone, you're used to, well, nothing when the screen is off. This always on display, or AOD, is neither of those. Lock the screen on your iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max and it kind of looks like you just turned the brightness down. It's your same lock screen, complete with the new depth detecting wallpaper and whatever widgets you want, just dimmer.
The reality is this thing is definitely different, but the problem is it looks like it's on. And I think what's going to happen is that this is going to backfire on Apple. A more simple and much more obvious always on display would have worked better. Why are you showing an entire image with the screen off. The problem is people who aren't used to this feature, all the people who don't watch tech YouTube, are going to think that the phone is malfunctioning and not shutting all the way down. They've never had an always on display before. It just looks like the screen is about to turn off. So I think Apple wanted to give you more screen real estate that's actually kind of on off, but it just looks weird. Just give us a really simple thing where the only things that are showing are the notifications and the time. That's it. Don't show me my desktop wallpaper and stuff. I don't need to see all that. It probably isn't using that much more battery, but the fact that it's on means it's got to be using more battery, because if it was just black with an OLED, it turns off those pixels. So it's got to be using more battery for no reason. Like, why do I want to see this stuff here in darkness? I don't want to see that, Apple. Fix that, please. Now, thankfully, that is a software thing that could get fixed. And in that case, I'm going to love always on display on an iPhone. I mean, I've been waiting for one forever. They've done it right on the Apple Watch. Why couldn't they get it right on the iPhone? What I think is going to happen, this is going to completely backfire, and people that are not used to this are going to turn it off because they're going to constantly be battery anxious or think that something's not right with the iPhone. They're literally going to turn this feature off. Apple will probably have metrics behind that, be able to see exactly how many people are doing it. Do not be surprised if we see an update to the always on display to allow you to customize it more or turn off things like just the wallpaper. Apple, get on it. And of course, the price is stupid expensive for what it is, but if you're coming from something like an iPhone 10 or an 8 or a 7 or something like that, then this is going to be a massive upgrade for you. You're going to absolutely love it, unless you're coming from an iPhone that has a button and this one doesn't have a button. You've got to learn that whole thing. But after you get used to it, you're going to dig it. For me, coming from an iPhone 13 Pro Max, the one thing that I am missing is a badass color like this. I ended up getting basically white. I know they call it some other weird name, because I wasn't sure what purple would look like. Apple's like color schemes are so weird, because when you look at them on the website and then look at them in person, they don't look the same. You can't even tell what color these phones are half the time until you go into a store. So I went safe with white, and now I'm bored with white. So I had to go get one of their expensive ass cases to make it look something interesting. I mean, this isn't necessarily the color I would want, but it's not bad. But it's not as good as the baby blue, baby. I want the baby blue, baby. So when you're spending that much money, you want to love every single part of the phone. And I don't love every single part of this phone, but I'm good with like 99% of it. I definitely wouldn't tell anyone who has an iPhone 11, 12, or 13 to upgrade to it. I just don't see the point, unless you really need always on display, or the dynamic island is just so crazy that you absolutely need that. I can't understand why that would be the case. Or crash detection, I suppose, if you're prone to such things. But at the end of the day, I just got to say that it's another iPhone. And that's pretty much what you should expect. It's not like amazing. It's not a foldable phone or anything interesting like that. I still think Android has the most interesting phones out there, but I can't get away from Apple. I'm kind of locked in. Look, at the end of the day, get the phone you can afford if you want to. There's some trade-in deals, do all the things. But for me, I just can't tell someone to get this phone if they have something that's been made in the last 3 years. I don't see the point. Maybe that'll change with the next iteration, the iPhone 15. I can't imagine that it would. It's like buying the same shirt every single year. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I guess my review is it's good. It's an iPhone, which is what you kind of expect. But it's not blowing my socks off. My socks are actually off right now. Did it do? I don't think it did that. Anyway, I got some other videos here, but I'm actually going to do videos for my other channel now. I'm kind of bored of tech. See you guys later.